I just pulled Stella out of the pasture, so she's a little rusty crusty, but she's living her best life, so who can judge? What's up, guys? I'm Lizzie. How do you start training your horse to do liberty? Where do you even start? I might be able to help you out just a little bit. Somebody on TikTok recently asked me how they could start training their horse to do liberty and said that they could use all the help they could get. So I thought I'd help out the best I can and do a full video on it. So let's get into it. It's actually not nearly as complicated as you think it would be. You don't have to be some amazing professional trainer to be able to start this with your horse, and it's really fun and really freeing feeling when your horse is running by your side with no reins, no halter, no anything. So I do highly recommend you start trying this with your horse because it is a lot of fun and it's really good for your communication and your relationship with your horse. So where would you even start? It does seem daunting, doesn't it? If you have a horse, you have a halter, you have a lead rope, and maybe if you have some sort of whip, carrot stick, crop, or whatever, it can help. Then you can do this. I believe in you. Obviously having things like a round pen or arena really helps, but it's not necessary. I've done it without arena. You can do it without an arena. I started trying this when I was like 13, so can you. So obviously you don't just start by taking your horse's halter off in a huge pasture and expecting them to follow you, because that's just going to lead to disappointment. So what we really just want to work on is to improve our groundwork a lot and just be able to do all of the things on the ground on a loose rein. So probably the biggest thing that you need to work on before you start practicing liberty is your draw. And what that means is that when you are lunging your horse or you're having them run at your side, that when you stop or you ask them to stop, they do it on a loose rein. So if you're lunging them and then you ask them to come into you, they will stop and turn into you without having to put any pressure on the lead rope. And a fun drill that I like to practice that really improves your horse's whoa is I'll have them run at my side, like you would do if you were running around with them liberty, but with the lead rope. So what I do is I'll ask the horse to walk first, and I'll put pressure behind their rear end, and I'll keep myself about at their shoulder. But I ask them to walk first, and then I'll just start walking with them. Good girl. And this is training them to be able to be ahead of you, but also responding to you. So once we have them walking at our side, anywhere away from the barn, towards the barn, with a loose lead line, then we should work on our whoa and make sure that they stop when we stop. This is going to keep them paying attention to us so that if we were in liberty and we stop, they also stop. So to get them to stop when we stop, we have them walk at our side. And then when we stop, we have them stop with our crop or our carrot stick or our whip or whatever we're using. And then we have them take a few steps back till they're back at our level. Rewards like grass and treats and scratches also work great when you're training for liberty because we're trying to build a relationship and not just bully the horse to do what we want, because if we're bullying them, then they're probably not going to enjoy us a lot and will probably leave the first chance they get. So being kind to them, giving them treats, whatever, is going to help you out a lot. Maybe some consider that spoiling or soft training or whatever, but you know, if you want certain results, you're gonna have to ignore some of the hate. So now that our horse can walk by our side and stop when we stop, we can start going at a faster pace. We can ask for a trot and then we stop again and we have them back up if they don't stop with us, or even if they do stop with us, we still back up and we get them to back up with us so that they know that stop means stop and back up. And it keeps them on their toes and it keeps them paying attention, and we're just making the whole thing interesting for them so that there's something for them to always be thinking about. A horse starts acting worse when they get bored and they get tired of the same drills. So they start acting up because they are tired of repetition. So the best way to keep them acting their best and keeping the mood light is to change things up, make it fun for them so that we're not drilling them to death. So that's one drill I really like to do, and I actually like to do it a lot for horses that don't have great backup under the saddle too, because it helps them transition from going forward to backing up and being quick and light on their feet, and it helps with self-carriage because when they are expecting to stop and back up, they hold themselves in a lighter, more eager manner instead of kind of sluggish, dull behavior. The next thing we can practice doing is lunging, and Lunging is kind of the #1 thing that every equestrian does and knows how to do with their horse. It's like the only groundwork thing that most people do, but it's also one of the things that people drill to death. And like I was talking about earlier, they bore the horse and they drill him to death, and it's repetition, and the horse will get irritated when they're forced to do something that is mind rotting after a while. So we're not here to drill it to death. Again, we want to keep things interesting, we want to change things up. When we go to lunge our horse, we can start paying attention to how the horse is responding and where their attention is at. And this will help us know that if a horse is ready or not to start liberty. So if you're lunging your horse, pay attention to where their attention is at. Because if you're lunging them and they're looking outside the ring, their ears are facing out, their body is kind of arched where they're shouldering you almost, and their whole focus is just outside of the ring. That's a good example of a horse that is bored or has separation anxiety or doesn't like where they are or is just uninterested with you and what you're doing with them. So an easy way to get your horse to pay more attention to you and to stop giving you the shoulder and will turn their ribs away from you instead of boxing you out is to start making things more interesting. Start changing it up. Like I said earlier, having a good draw is one of the most important things when you are doing liberty, because you always want to make sure that your horse is coming back to you. But if you're lunging your horse and there's no slack in the rope and they're not paying attention to you at all, you're going to have a very hard time to draw them back into you because they don't give a crap. So what we can do to make it more interesting and fun for a horse is to change it up. Instead of just going the same direction constantly, let's switch directions every other circle. Or let's practice doing the figure 8, which is basically doing half circles and having them come this way, and then we'll have them go around us and go that way and back and forth. Do things like randomly have them stop and back up and then go forward, stop and back up, just to keep them on their toes and wondering what's going to happen next. We're not doing these things aggressively. We're not going to get really angry at them if it's not super pretty looking. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just having fun. We're just changing it up, and we're just making it so the horse isn't bored out of their mind running in circles. And then when we take a step back and we ask our horse to come into us and they come, we want to make sure that we've praised them a lot, know that they did a good job. Make it fun to be with us. Let them have a treat or some scratches or whatever they like. Give them a little break and try again so that they know that coming back into us isn't a scary thing. We're not going to swing a whip at them and whatever. We're a safe space, but we also like to have fun. And so we're making it a fun environment for the horse. So they're not always thinking about wanting to leave and be with another horse or whatever. And eventually you should notice some really fun changes, like the horse keeping their ears on you, keeping an eye on you, not boxing you out. Pay attention to like their rib cage. And if their rib cage is always sticking out towards you, that means that they don't trust you, don't respect you, don't care about you, and they're not thinking about you. But things like that should get better by keeping the horse interested and making them realize that you're cool too. And if you have an arena or a round pen, you can do these lunging games without a lead rope. You can just free lunge them and just play around with them and just have fun, change things up, have them change directions. If they're always just running back to the gate and wanting to stay there, just always make them work there and let them rest somewhere else. So they realize that being at the gate isn't always great, but being somewhere else in the arena can be fun. Basically, it's not always going to be pretty your first time, your second time, even your 10th time. And if I'm being honest, I do have some outtakes from my last Liberty video where Stella would randomly run away. And I don't have fencing in my arena right now, so she was able to get quite a lot of energy out just booking it around the pen. And it's whatever, I can't stop her from doing it. That's not the point of Liberty, is to control them. It's to entice them to be with you. I just let her run away. I would try to attract her back to me, but if she ignored me and went and sat at the gate, I would start making her work there, and then she would run away from the gate. I use apples to entice her to stay with me and stuff, but it doesn't always work, and I can't always hold her attention, and I'm not the greatest at doing Liberty, and I'm probably doing some things wrong, and I have a lot of room for improvement. But we can't be afraid of our horses saying no and leaving us, making us look stupid, hurting our egos, and we have these high expectations of what other horses can do with their owners and how cool it can look with them, and you want your horse to be able to do that, and we just expect our horse to be able to do that first try, and it's not how it goes. You have to expect to have failure. There's a fine line of having high expectations, but also expecting your horse to be able to do something. Because if we're always envisioning our horse running away and not doing it, and we're like, oh yeah, there's no way our horse could do that, then our horses are envisioning what we're envisioning, and that's them running away. But if we have trust and some faith in our training and our horse, and some expectation of what they can do, they will usually always rise to your expectations. And there's always times where when I'm doing Liberty with Stella and she'll start thinking about running away, and if I started putting pressure on her to be like, hey, come here, and start shaking my whip at her butt or something, she would definitely run away. So there's definitely a time to set aside your control freak side and be able to give up control and take a step back and not put any pressure on the horse, and just try to draw them nicely without trying to force them to come to you. Putting energy on them or trying to force them to come to you is going to make them want to leave. When they're in that fragile state of thinking about leaving you or coming to you, you're dancing on glass, and if you put pressure on them in that moment, it's usually going to push them away. So then after all of that, how do you know if you are ready to start practicing Liberty and taking off the lead rope and just trying it? If you can do all the things that we talked about, lunging your horse, having your horse stop and come to you, backing up your horse, walking your horse by your side, or trotting or even cantering at your side, and having them stop and back up with you. If you're able to do all of that with a loose lead rope between you and the horse, and it's all body language, and the horse is stopping when you stop, and the horse is going that way when you go that way, and the horse is backing up when you back up, there's a good chance that you'll have some success with your first try at Liberty. But one of the biggest and hardest things you have to accept when you are trying to do Liberty is that you are not going to have full control. You have to let the horse have control. You have to let the horse say no. You can't get offended if they leave you. It's not always going to be pretty, and it's not always going to be fun, but you are out there to have fun. You're out there to give the horse a good time, to show them that you can be fun, and the things you're doing are not repetitive, you're changing things up. You definitely don't want to, again, take off your halter in a big pasture and expect them to follow you. You definitely don't want to take off their halter and then get on their back and expect them to know all of the fancy things that some amazing Liberty trainers know how to do. But I do want to mention that if you're going to be using a whip, a crop, a carrot stick, whatever you have, make sure that your horse is not afraid of it and won't freak out if you swing it at them or tap them with it or whatever. It's not a weapon. It's just a communication tool. It's an extension of your arm. It's to be able to put pressure on points of the horse that you can't reach with your arm, to let them know what part of the body you want them to move, if it's their hindquarters, if you want them to go forward, if you want them to go sideways, whatever it is. This is not a tool to beat the horse to make it go faster. This is not something that the horse should be afraid of. So make sure that your horse is really cool with whatever tools you are using and are not scared of any of your equipment, because that is going to make it very hard to train them to do other things if you have those kind of blocks in your way. I also want to mention that it's easiest to train your horse and to get breakthroughs when you are in their comfortable environment. You don't want them to be stressed out about where they are, have lots of scary things going on. You want to be in an environment where they feel safe in before you start training things, because that makes it easier for them to absorb information and to retain it. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give a big like and subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I'll try to answer them my best, or maybe I'll make a video on it. Who knows? I post new videos every single Sunday. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and I'll see you guys next week, Sunday. Bye!